Section 3.1, point slope form of a line. This is actually point slope form. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times the difference of x and x sub 1. Why do we call this point slope form? Is because it has a point that you see highlighted there, and of course it has a slope. And just like on slope intercept form, this does not apply for vertical lines. Now, you're going to notice that we're going to be using this form to actually come up with slope intercept form in this video, in this lesson. Let's move on to the next slide. So here's number one. It says find the equation of the line that contains the given point and given slope. Write the equation in slope intercept form. So I want to write the equation in y equals mx plus b. To get there, I am going to use point slope form because the information in this problem is a point, it's an x sub 1, y sub 1, and an m. So I plug it in here, and this is what I get. I get y minus the y sub 1 value equals the m, which is negative a half, times x minus negative 8. And then at this point, notice that something's going to happen here. This becomes a plus. You should feel comfortable doing that by now. Then I'm going to distribute the negative 1/2 into these two terms inside the brackets. And I end up with negative 1/2 x, and negative a half times positive 8 gives you negative 4. Then at this point, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Once I do that, I get y is equal to negative 1/2 x minus 2. From here, now it's in slope intercept form, and I can graph this very easily. I know my b is equal to negative 2, my m is equal to negative 1/2. If I interpret the slope, I know that y decreases by 1 and x increases by 2. So here's my y-intercept. So from here, y decreases by 1, x increases by 2. That's why I have this point, down by 1, increase by 2, decrease by 1 on the y decreases by 1, and x increases by 2. How do I get the second point? Just basically do the same thing. Y decreases by 1, x increases by 2, and that's enough. At this point, all I need to do is draw my line, and this is the answer to number 1. Here's 2. Same directions, just different problem. So again, I'm given the point, and I'm given also the slope, and I need to put this equation in slope intercept form if possible, and then I'm going to graph the line. So once I'm here, I am going to substitute this x sub 1 and this y sub 1 into my formula here along with the m, and this is what I get. Y minus negative 1 equals 2 times x minus negative 1. At this point, you know that these become plus, and that's why I have this. From here, I'm going to distribute this 2 into these two terms inside the parentheses, and I get left side still the same, and then you have 2x plus 2 on the right hand side. At this point, I'm going to take away 1 from both sides, and I end up with y is equal to 2x plus 1. From here, you should see that my b is 1 and my m is 2. So I go to the graph, and if I interpret the slope as y increases by 2 and x increases by 1. So for my y-intercept, I increase, y increases by 2, so I'll go up 2, x increases by 1. So this is where I have my next point. Just one more, but instead of going to the right of this point, I'm actually going to go to the left from the starting point. And I'm basically going to get a point to the left side of this point. I'm just going to do the opposite that you see here. So instead of increasing by 2, I am going to decrease by 2, and instead of increase by 1 on the x, I'm going to decrease by 1. Okay, and then from here, we just sketch a line, and this is the answer to number 2. So here's 3. Again, you're given a point and a slope, so I'm going to plug this into point slope form. Point slope form is going to be able to help me get to slope intercept form. So I plug in my x of 1, y of 1, my m in this form. This is what I get. This becomes minus negative, becomes plus, same thing here. So you have y plus 1 on the left hand side equals negative 1/3 x times this expression. I apply the distributive property on the right hand side, and this is what I get. I am going to take away 1 from both sides, and I end up with my slope intercept form. Then at this point, I should be able to recognize my y-intercept and my slope, which is right here. Negative 2 for the y-intercept. My slope is negative 1/3. If I interpret the slope, it says y decreases by 1, x increases by 3. So I go to negative 2, my starting point on the y-axis, my y-intercept. Y is going to decrease by 1, so I'm here. X is going to increase by 3, so I'm here. I can go one more to the left, but I'm just going to switch it around. You should be able to find a point to the left of the y-intercept. So instead of decrease by 1 on the y, I'm going to increase by 1 on the y. Instead of increase by 3 on the x, I'm going to decrease by 3 on the x. And once I have this, I can go ahead and draw my line, and this is the answer to number 3. Let's move on to next slide. So here's 4. Same directions. They give you different information. So I'm going to plug in my point and my m. This is what I get. And notice that since I have 0 on the right hand side times this expression here is just going to become 0. And then at this point I need to add 5 to both sides. Once I do that, this is what I get. I either get y equals 5 or y equals y equals 0 times x plus 5. Same thing. Now from here you should be able to recognize that this represents a horizontal line going through the y value of 5. So this is your answer. This is the graph. If you don't recognize that, work with this form. You should see that the y-intercept is 5 and the slope is 0. If you interpret the slope, this is basically what you have. 0 over 1. Y over 1, because this is the same thing as 0 over 1. And then from here, once you apply the slope from the y-intercept of 5, it says y increases by 0, so you don't move, but along the x-axis you increase by 1. So you have 2 points, and this is your line. So you can do it either way, recognizing that this represents a horizontal line or using slope intercept form. Let's go to number 5. So you have the point negative 2, negative 4. The slope is undefined. From this statement right here, you should recognize that this represents vertical line. Slope undefined represents a vertical line. This is the point that the line goes through, negative 2, negative 4, which is down here. Since it's a vertical line, and this is the point that is on the line, so then this is the answer to the graph. Now what is the equation of the line? We cannot put it in slope intercept form because it's a vertical line, but I know that any vertical line is x equals a real number. What real number? The x value of the point. So that's why the answer is x equals negative 2. Let's move on to number 6. Just find an equation of the line that contains the given points. Write the equation in slope intercept form if possible. So at this point, they don't give you the slope and a point. They give you 2 points. But you know a formula that if you know the 2 points, you're able to find the slope, which is this formula. You plug in your values here. I'm going to let this be x1, y1, and this x2, y2. Excuse me, y2. You plug it in, and this is what you have. You have -4 minus -1. That's your numerator. Denominator is -10 minus 5. Simplify this, you get 1/5. Now that you have your slope, you have 2 points. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the slope, and we're going to pick one point and plug it into point-slope form, so they can help us come up with slope-intercept form. So from here, the slope is m. I'm choosing to work with this point here, the first one. So this is my x sub 1, so that's why I have -5, and then your y sub 1 is y minus -1. This becomes a plus. I distribute the 1/5 here using the distributive property, and you end up with this. One last step, I'm going to take away 1 from both sides, and I end up with this. And this is my answer. And the answer is in slope-intercept form, which is this. And you should feel comfortable recognizing the form already. Let's go to 7. So we have those 2 points. I'm going to find the slope using the same formula you see here. Plug in my, this is going to be my x sub 2, y sub 2, this is x sub 1, y sub 1. You simplify, and you're going to notice that you have 9/0. And at this point, you should feel comfortable recognizing that this represents a no, N-O, because it's a number. And then, since the slope is undefined, you know that this represents a vertical line. So we cannot use this form nor this form, and you know that any vertical line is x equals a real number, and it turns out to be the x value of the point. It turns out to be the same. That's why it makes sense that it's x equals -5. Let's go to number 8. Same process. Find the slope first. Once you simplify this, you end up with -3. I have my slope. I have my 2 points. I'm going to choose to work with, I'm going to plug this information, then the slope and this point into my point-slope form. Once I do that, this is what I get. This becomes plus. I distribute the -3 into this x minus 1, and I end up with the following. I'm going to take away 2 from both sides, and I end up with y equals -3x plus 1. This is the answer. And again, I want it in slope-intercept form. This is slope-intercept form. If I wanted to graph number 8, I can do that very easily. If I wanted to graph number 6, I can do that very easily just by looking at the slope and the y-intercept. Let's move on to the last 2 problems. Here's number 9. It says find the equation of the line described. Write the equation in slope-intercept form, if possible. At this point, to make this problem understand the answer a little better, let's go ahead and graph the information here. So I have the point 3, -2, which is this point, and I know that this represents a vertical line. Okay, so since it represents a vertical line, this is the graph. Of this given information in problem number 9. Now, I don't have to graph it, but again, this helps understand the process a little bit better, helps understand the answer. And at this point, every single one of you should know that any horizontal line is x equals a real number. So this is the answer to number 9. X equals 3. For number 10, you have a horizontal line that contains the point 4, 5. Again, to make so we can understand this answer or this problem a little better, let's graph the information. So I have the point 4, 5, which is right here, and I know I have a horizontal line that goes through this. So this is the graph, but I don't need the graph, I just need the equation in slope interval. So I forgot to mention this for number 9. Since it's a vertical line, I know that I cannot express the answer in slope interval. This one I can. Number 10. Horizontal line, you know that is always y equals a real number. What real number? The y value of the point. So that's why the answer is y equals 5, or if you want to express it as 0 times x plus 5 is also correct. And this concludes the video. If you have any questions in any portion of this lesson, the video, you have an opportunity to do that in class.